was really at that point, it was like kind of that breaking moment where I got to choose not to trade off my investment future for my family or my investment future for my hobbies, but just take a break and recalibrate.
Patrick, welcome to the show today.
Thanks. I'm really excited to be here. It's been a lot of time since I've been following your podcast and your content, and it's been so great, and you've added so much value. It's kind of coming full circle now that you've invited me onto your podcast, and I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, you scaled so rapidly, especially over the last 12 months, owning over 1,000 units right now. And so we want to get into that, but I want to kind of rewind the clock a little bit back in the early days, the little bit younger days, and think back when you first started getting real estate on the brain, right? You probably, read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and you're like, oh, real estate, that sounds like a good idea. Like, why did you first even start thinking about real estate? What was going on in your life at the time?
Well, back when I had a lot more hair on my head, I was a snot-nosed engineer out of college, and I did machine design automation. The first employer that I had took me a little bit under his wing, and in our conversations, he said, look, I'm in the high-tech space. It's great. It's cognitively rewarding, but hey, all my money is actually in real estate, and you need to do the same. And so I saved up every penny I had, and I dumped it into these deals where did all this research and analysis, and the market was never going to go down because this is back in 2007.
Of course.
Yeah. And I was highly leveraged and speculating in new land and planning to build on it. And then once you know it, it all came crashing down, and I was heading towards BK, which I was able to escape from, and foreclosure and settle, and then had to pay debt forgiveness. And so I haven't lost money on a deal since, but I learned a lot through that. And it did humble me. At that point, I escaped back into my career, got 2 master's degrees in business and engineering. And it was a few years later before I decided, look, I'm going to do real estate again. I'm doing my income is high. I've got automation projects with defense, Lockheed, and automotive at Tesla, and medical device companies. I'm like, look, I gotta put that in the right spot, not just in stocks.
Right. Okay. So you were looking for an investment vehicle at the time. You had some excess income and you wanted to put it in real estate. Now, a lot of people who got burned in 2008, they said, oh, real estate bad, no bueno, and they're out, right? And they kind of threw the whole asset class out the window. And luckily you didn't. How did you change your strategy then after the recession? How did your investing change?
Well, I followed the typical path. I was like, well, let me look at what's not speculating, what's investing, and what asset classes cash flow and what markets are recession resilient. And I got turned on to hold investing, or the BRRRR method. I didn't know what it was at the time. And I started doing research and analysis, and I started doing in areas like Houston, where the market kind of lifted and stabled off. I was like, well, maybe I'll dabble in something there. And so I started I built a team. I read a bunch of books. I run a podcast, and that's ultimately how I learned about you. But at that time, it was purely single family. So I was moonlighting these, and it was working. I was moonlighting these deals, and I was buying, renovating, and pulling money out, finding distressed opportunities, and just rolling into the next. But I'll tell you what, with a 60-hour-a-week job, which I loved and still do, there wasn't much time for a lot of other things. And when I met my wife, I was like, look, I can't moonlight this because I want to marry my wife, right? And so it was really at that point, it was like kind of that breaking moment where I got to choose not to trade off my investment future for my family or my investment future for my hobbies, but just take a break and recalibrate. And it was during that time, I don't know if I was running through Big Bear, where we got married in California, or running through the streets of Beijing, but that's when I stumbled, not literally, across your podcast. That spoke directly to my heart, right? Because it was all the struggles of chasing property managers. And every time I'd close on a new deal, it was a challenge, and I couldn't scale. And I was only a limited amount that I could do. And so I realized all of a sudden, I've got to scale, I've got to trade up to multifamily, and I've got to partner up. I can't do it all on my own.
That's a lot of realizations that you got from the podcast all in one place. That's pretty cool. I mean, this is the thing. I just made the same discovery through single family house investing. It is a lot of work. It's very difficult, almost impossible, I'd say, to set it up in a passive way, unless you achieve a very large scale, which of course is, obviously pull your hair out, as you can clearly see. And so, so you move to multifamily. So that's pretty cool. All right, so you listen to the podcast, you're like, man, multifamily is the way to go. You still wanted to be an active investor in as you were contemplating this. Now, when you got into, so you've done a few houses though, but did your reason for investing in real estate change a little bit? Like in the beginning, I was like, well, I need to put my money somewhere. And this guy said it was a good idea. So that's what I did. As you were contemplating shifting to multifamily, multifamily. Did your goals change at all, or it's just simply the same thing, but as a matter of scale?
Well, yeah, they did. Because, at the same time I was shifting into getting married, and I was having a little more value for that quality of life. And before it was just, hey, I'm going to work forever. I'm a hard worker. I'll work a full-time job and get 2 master's degrees. It wasn't about focusing on other things. And I mean, I do a lot of adventure sports along the way, but I started seeing a little bit better future and focusing more on, how can I have a better quality on the other side of this engineering career, maybe accelerating retirement. And then on the other side, what will cause me to not lose it all like I did once? What's it recession resilient and asset protected, and how to build a legacy through retirement, right? And I think those are really some of the things that really rang true to me.
So, and Patrick, you actually got your wife involved at a certain point. Can you tell us about how that kind of came up? Was it organic? How did you kind of get her on the same page with you guys and what you were looking to do?
Sure. Yeah. So it wasn't easy, but when she got on board, she got really on board and put together a vision board and everything. But initially, her coming from China, being raised in China, ideas of financial freedom and kind of buying properties with leverage as opposed to just buying them, let them sit empty. All these things were actually new concepts for her. And her parents we struggle to this very day when we talk about these things. They don't quite comprehend. You work until the government says you stop, and then you stop. And so, and then they've all worked. They're all both doctors. They worked forever. So I took her to a number. I knew I needed to get her on board because I have read a bunch of books and listened to podcasts said you got to bring your family with you. So I took her to a bunch of seminars. And then when I came across Michael Blunt's Ultimate Guide, I said, hey, look, I'm going to go get a 3rd master's degree. You don't have to join me, but I'm going to be at Starbucks on nights and weekends for the next X number of weeks until I'm through this entire thing. And I was like, do you want to be with me or you want to be at home? So she came with me. We started learning it, and she was listening to the videos. I was taking diligent notes and reviewing them every day. And then I joined the Slack channel. And at that point, we actually did do a mentorship program. And through there, we actually had some coaching from you, Garrett, as well as Drew Niffen and Bronson, who was not far from where we were at the time. We had heard a lot of data points of, this Michael Blunt team and Nighthawk Equity, and they kind of helped out a lot. And we went to an event, started mentorship. She created that vision board. And next thing you know, she's got 80 videos recorded on passive investor education. And we're up on the website. She's got a whole Women at the Cash Flow series, and she's pushing me, right? Instead of me pulling her. And I think it took some time, but she definitely got.
So you mentioned a few things that are really critical when you first get started. Number one is you gotta believe that this is possible, right? If you don't believe in something, why would you ever take any step in that direction? And you, for some reason, believe that real estate can be used as a vehicle for financial freedom. And I think that's number one. Number two, you got educated, right? You took one of our programs, our courses. That's very important. But then you brought in your wife, right? So that is super important because you need some kind of accountability partner, which is almost what she was in the beginning, and she was holding you accountable, which is awesome. And then you got her really excited about putting out videos, which is really, really cool. Now you talked about other people involved. So there's a mentor, you talked about Garrett and Bronson and other people around you advising you a little bit as well. And how did you then use all that to kind of get your first deal done?
Yeah, well, it was a long, challenging process, I'll be honest. And, there's a lot of barriers to entry. So we initially started flying, and some of the time she would come with me. I was flying already for the engineering stuff, but now I'm flying also for markets, right? Target markets, the recession resilient ones, the similar ones that I was investing in single family, but now wanting to trade up, trying to meet the brokers and break into the old boys club and buying lunches and dinners, and then underwriting constantly. The Slack channel was very helpful. The mechanics of since you come from an engineering background, I think we resonated on the mechanics of it, and I got the mechanics and the underwriting. It took a lot of that kind of relationship building, and the coach was helpful because, coming from machine design where every single invention is a one-of-a-kind deal, it takes somebody with experience and wisdom to see through a deal on why things have failed and the numbers are not good enough, right? You've got to have that experience check mark. And so I did it after just bringing deal after deal after deal to various individuals on, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? Here's all the analysis, going back, doing the work, getting it done. Eventually, a sponsor was like, hey, let's do a deal together. right? Let's do one.
All right. So a few things. It sounds to me like you actually started analyzing deals as a first thing. And then it sounds like your plan was to bring a live deal to a more senior operator. Was that kind of the track that you're on?
Yeah, I've never, like I said, I'm extremely risk averse, and that's very apparent in the underwriting that I do. It's very low leveraged, and I'm looking for talented people to partner with and trade up, right? And into a more sophisticated team. And I wasn't interested. I had learned that doing it yourself, it can be painful, and you can learn hard lessons along the way. And so I decided not to do that again. And so I was looking for those individuals.
Great advice, a great story, Patrick. How can people connect with you and find out more?
Well, is it okay if I offer a free gift to your listeners?
Go ahead.
Yeah. So we did my wife and I work on a book to tell our story because we haven't really got it out there. So the first time we did that, we did put together a book. It's called Persistence, Pivots, and Game Changers, Turning Challenges into Opportunities. I did a chapter in here, and it's my story. And I'd be happy to, if you go to my website, you're going to see the book right there, investonmainstreet.com. I'd be happy to give this book signed copy to any of your listeners that want to set up a call and talk about their goals and see if I can offer any value to them.
Sounds good. We'll put that in the show notes. Patrick, it's been great to have you on the show. Thanks so much.
All right. Thank you, Michael and Garrett.